Welcome to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinosky. Industry has a million cool stories, and Jim talks to the movers and shakers who are making them happen. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to Manufacturing Talks. I'm Jim Vinosky, your host, and we're sponsored by Cosgrove Content, your wordsmiths for industry. So if you work in a technical field, manufacturing industry, wherever, and you struggle to find someone who can write about what you do, get a hold of us, cosgrovecontent.com. And I'm excited today to be joined by Gabe Draper. He is the co-founder of Factur, and what they do is they partner with manufacturing suppliers to grow their revenues. Welcome, Gabe.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So I want you to say right up front, you've got another line that you use about who you are.
I'm a failed machine shop owner
Which I love.
Yeah. For the people that are watching the YouTube, I keep these visual aids of my auction notice on my desk.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I'm sure anybody running a shop recognizes these. They probably get those and they start salivating at the the good deals they're going to get from the poor saps that are going out of business. That was me.
All the stuff you bought and had to sell cheap.
Yeah, so these are like my motivators to not do that again.
Okay, so let's talk about that briefly, because I know you want to get into what you do today. But what happened there? What did you learn along the way?
Quick version, I came into a machine shop that my dad and grandfather had started about 5 years before I came in. It had not gone well. I came in to kind of help provide some stability. They had health issues. And it was a tiny business. We were doing about 400 grand in revenue when I came in, losing about 125,000 a year. So not great financially. So we were able to turn it around and grow it about 8x. And I had ended up buying it from them. The main issue was we just needed more revenue to cover our overhead so that we could be profitable. So my first goal was to find revenue to get up over our break even so we could be profitable. So I found that with oil and gas. And so we really hit a stride there where we got the business turned around, we got scaled up, we were profitable, but it was 70% oil and gas. Actually, a little bit more than that. My second goal was to diversify away from that because everybody knows oil and gas is boom bust.
Yep.
And so made some progress, but not enough progress. So in 2014, the price of oil went down. And then early 2015, all the orders dried up like within a month. And it was pretty clear there was no backup plan. You can't supplant 72% of your revenue that quickly. It's almost impossible. So we ended up shutting down, we kind of wound down the business, Q2 and Q3 of 2015, had an auction that I just showed in August. And that was kind of the end of business operations.
Well, obviously a big bummer, but from that came Factur. So tell us how you did that curve and co-founded a completely separate business.
Definitely a big bummer. It wiped us out financially pretty hard. It was really desperation, the founding of Factur. When I went out of business, I had 12 things that I thought were leads to generate revenue or generate income for myself and my family. It was right after my son was born that we had to sell our house to pay the bills. Moved into a tiny apartment, and what do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah,
that is totally true. And also, a hungry belly is motivating.
Oh yeah.
So I had a family to feed, and so I was like, I'll do whatever. I need to make money. So I chased all 12 of these things one by one. They kind of all dropped off. My wife and I just prayed over, like, what do we want to, where does God want us to go? I was wiped out. I didn't have I was completely hand to mouth. So we were praying over that, and just all the 12, I said, I'm going to pursue all of them, pray over it. And, it'll become clear. So they all dropped off one by one. And then, a buddy of mine from church, Caleb Townsend, he and I had started these networking groups for manufacturing shops to network because we just found there wasn't any good networking. It was all bankers and lawyers at every networking event you go to, and they don't know what an end mill is from a windmill. So we started these networking groups back in 2014, and it was kind of a fun side hustle, nothing significant from an income standpoint, but there was some income, maybe, I don't know, 20 grand a year or something like that. That was one of my 12. So as I was winding down Draper Manufacturing, my shop, I had more time because, I wasn't conducting a full operation. It was,
Right.
My time was increasing as my money and business were decreasing. So I reallocated that time toward working on the networking groups, and those started to go pretty well. And, all the other options I had of my 12 dropped off one by one. And at the end of 2015, the referral groups were going well and everything else had dropped off. So I said, well, I'll keep doing this. It wasn't a livable income yet, but we'd still had some money from the sale of our house to kind of keep things afloat. And so that's what I did. And then early 2016, actually January 1st, 2016, Caleb quit his job and jumped on the boat full time as well. So our official founding as Factur was 2016 when we both went all in on it. We quickly realized that there wasn't enough revenue to pay for both of us. So we, again, out of desperation, we just went to our network and we said, what can we do? Within the scope of, we had started to develop a clarity on a mission to help shops like my former shop grow revenue, because that was the big issue. Like, we didn't have a proactive strategy to grow revenues.
Right.
We were reactive. We, word of mouth, occasionally a web lead, some key relationships, or how we built the business to a point, but it was all reactive. We didn't have a proactive. So we were starting to develop clarity on a mission. So we went to our network within the context of that mission to help shops grow revenue, and said, what can we do for you to help you to this end? And within, I think a month, we had 4 different of our buddies, paying us a retainer to go out and hunt for them. Because they said, once we get somebody who's serious, I can engineer a good solution and put a good quote together and negotiate and close the business. I just not good at hunting. So we said, if you're willing to pay for it, we're willing to do it. That's how we started, early 2016, with our prospecting services, as we call them.
Yeah.
That was the origin of it. And that's 100% of our business. So we're not in the networking business anymore. We sold that off in 2022. So we're 100% now in outsourced business development, lead generation, and marketing services, and also talent solutions to help sales teams help companies build their own sales team. We started with a hungry belly, and we've scaled it from there.
So I do applaud you guys for one thing, and that is you went out and asked the question. So many people are afraid to do that. I think they have to have all the answers, and you didn't. You realized it, so you went and asked your customers, what else can we do to make some money? Cool. That being said, you had a few guys there who knew where they were falling short, which is also, in my experience, maybe somewhat rare. So if you think about what those guys brought to you and your experience in helping them out early on, other manufacturers who might need the same thing but just don't even realize it, what should they be doing for themselves? I guess, what should they be looking at to think, is this a service I need? Is this something where it would make sense for me to pay the money to go outside with this kind of hunting?
I think the problems, the indicators of problems are, like in my case, too much dependency on one customer or one industry. Flat or declining revenue. And also, I think shops get into this trap where they have these like ups and downs, and when they're down, they kind of get out of their lane with the work that they take on, because they need business to keep everybody busy. And then, that causes all kinds of problems inside the shop. And so that's all a symptom of not having a proactive strategy that feeds revenue to your shop consistently and provides health for your diversifying your revenue and making sure that the work you bring in is the right work for your shop, so you don't get out of your lane. So those are some of the symptoms. I think, high level, every business has to have revenue, and every healthy business has to have proactive strategy to build and sustain revenue that meets their goals, whether that's in-house or out-of-house.
Yeah, right.
It's just a reality of business. Like, you got to have it.
Yeah.
So if you're good at that, it probably makes, if that's a core competency, it probably makes sense to have it in-house. If it's not a core competency, then you either have to partner with somebody, or you got to develop that core competency. So, I think it's not always, either or. I think more times than not, in our case, we partner with our clients. So it's somewhat of a relay race, so we're passing the baton back and forth based on, the process. So they do part of the process, we do part of the process. Sometimes they have things they're really good at, and we fill the gaps where they're not as strong. So, yeah.
So now you started with shops pretty similar to yours. Are you still sticking with that specific field? Have you branched out some from there? What's the scope of Factur now?
So our company name Factur is the middle of the word manufacturing. So we only help companies in the manufacturing world, and it's really only supply chain companies. So job shops, distributors, service providers, equipment providers, companies that sell to a manufacturing operation. We don't help the manufacturer that sells to the consumer. We help the supplier that sells to the manufacturer. So if you think of a bullseye, job shops and including like automation integrators, companies that have a capability or an expertise but not a product, that's the sweet spot. So job shops, integrators, and contract manufacturers, that's the bullseye on our target. From there, we go into distributors, OEMs, component providers, some software and service, and then when you get to the third ring, it's everything. We've got clients that sell facility services to keep a manufacturing operation up and running and clean. We've got companies that provide services to get your ISO certification or your AS certification, quality measurement, various auxiliary services that every manufacturer has to buy.
Yeah. So still focused around that manufacturing, I guess, vertical, but kind of encompassing everything that goes into that now, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of companies that do what we do. To my knowledge, there aren't any that focus on the niche in the way that we do to help these shops.
Good. So as you've gone through this and helped now a number of customers, obviously, what are things that people tend to do wrong that you help them with? When you go in, how do you identify those things that you need to shore up and that you need to build for them to succeed at going out and finding customers?
It's a broad topic. I'll try to summarize. I think one thing would be most of our clients are capable of a lot. I mean, they're really skilled in a lot of areas. But if you walk their shop, they're making money in just a few areas. So they all have a sweet spot. But like in my case, a machine shop, that's a very broad term. And there's a whole bunch of different types and niches within that. I think most machine shops, though, just look like a machine shop. Their brand, the way they talk about the business, and sometimes even the work that they try to get doesn't really match their sweet spot. But we call that a scarcity mentality. They do that because they don't think there's enough of their sweet spot out there, or they know it's out there, but they're just not good at going out and finding it. So I would say that's one thing is they try to be too broad in what they do, and they end up sounding like everybody else. And if you sound like
really interesting
everybody else, it's not very compelling. But we try to help our clients develop an abundance mentality by showing them like we can go find all that stuff. Like it's out there. You don't have to do the things you're not good at.
And
The
things that aren't making them much money either, right?
Yeah. We just got to define your sweet spot and let's go find it. So that's one thing. I think another high level theme is most of our clients in most manufacturing operations have an engineering culture, which is awesome. Engineers are wonderful. They're great people. They're super smart. They do the coolest stuff on the planet happens because of an engineer. We found that often,
and I'm going to break in here and say I did not tell Gabe up front that I am an engineer by degree. So now I owe him $20.
Yeah, there you go. We found that oftentimes engineers have a "if I build it, they will come" mentality, and that they don't want to, and sometimes are not proficient at the sales and marketing stuff. So I think a lot of times when they do make attempts at a proactive sales strategy, because they have an engineering culture, they either salespeople don't fit in because they're a different breed than the engineering culture they're coming into, or the mentality and the way they go about it. Sales is not, as much as we try to make it, sales is not black and white. It's gray in a lot of ways, and I think engineers need things to be black and white. And so when a salesperson or some sales strategy is on the table that's not black and white, a lot of times it gets tossed aside or it gets put into a black and white box. So that's another theme is, now I'm not saying it shouldn't be more black and white. Like there's definitely, metrics and data and a technical side of what we do that is very much black and white. But it's not all black and white.
Yeah. And I will plead guilty to that. And it's not just engineers. I think anyone working in the technical realm in any form or fashion kind of tends that way. So that's a great point. When you think about things that are going on today, obviously we're in something of a rougher economic time. Are there particular things that people out there should be aware of, things that they should be looking at for themselves around making sure that they're maximizing their opportunities?
So I think we've actually seen the majority of our clients fare pretty well through COVID. Most of them did pretty well. In these times now with, just a lot of things being variable or volatile and things just, people just don't know what's going on. And everybody's trying to navigate it. So I think one is you've got to be proactive. So, the thing I love about manufacturing is COVID was probably the closest thing to the world stopping that we've ever experienced, but yet people needed stuff and manufacturers made that stuff. So, from a value in the world kind of perspective, manufacturers are extremely valuable and critical. So, when we're going into economic headwinds or things like COVID that we just can't foresee, manufacturing is still going to be needed on some level.
Right.
Now it's going to get shaken up. We had some aerospace clients that were just chugging along thinking, the world couldn't get any better. And then you have COVID where planes weren't flying. You had the Boeing Max 8 thing where, demand dried up there as well. And so, they went from booming to busting. So you never really know. You got to keep your head on a swivel. You got to be proactive, because I think if companies that were diversified did really well during COVID, and I think they're going to do really well if we do have a recession coming up, because when one sector's down, the other, you can hedge your bets a bit.
Yeah.
The other thing is being proactive allows you to capture business in new markets where if you're not proactive, that business is not going to come to you most likely.
Yeah.
So if things get shaken up and you're not putting lines in the water, it's not likely that, in terms of musical chairs, like it's not likely you're going to find a chair. The people that are up dancing, if you will, from a activity standpoint are going to find the chairs.
Yeah. So what haven't we touched on that people really ought to know about what you guys do at Factur?
About what we do? It's a good question. I mean, we do the grunt work. So like I said, we partner with our clients, but I mean, it's hard work. It's messy. It's not cut and dry. There's uncertainty in it. There's a lot of rejection in it. There's a lot of unfortunately, sales is an inefficient process, and we do our best to make it more efficient. But you still have to talk to a whole bunch of people that just don't have the needs, that don't want to talk to you, that maybe do have the needs and do want to talk to you, but the timing's not right. So all this stuff has to happen for you. It's kind of like one of my guys at work says it's like looking for a needle in a stack of needles. Like you just got to go through them, and you eventually find one. So we do all that grunt work for them. I think one of the things we found to be really effective. There's a lot of software companies out there where they just want to sell you a tool, but you got to do all the work. And there's a lot of service companies out there, but they're not super efficient because it's all super manual. We found a lot of success blending technology and people in a done for you fashion. So that's been kind of our secret sauce in terms of how we attack producing results for our clients.
Nice. Do you find with your customers, so you go in and help them up front, do they tend to want to keep having you helping them, or do they tend to want to build those skills internally and eventually do their own thing?
Both. It depends. Depends on their goals. We have clients that stick with us for the long haul. We have clients that we're a means to an end to help them get to a point where they can build it themselves. We have clients that try building it themselves, and then they get into it and they realize this isn't what we're good at, or we just don't like doing this, or maybe the financial model of building it internally doesn't make as much sense as our model. We work with all of them. It really depends on what they're good at and what they want to do.
Yeah. Okay. As you look down the road for Factur, what are the big opportunities that you still think are out there and you want to go after down the road?
Oh man, I probably spend too many nights dreaming about opportunities. There's a lot of stuff. I kind of figure we're about 1% of the way down the path that we're going down. There's just a ton of room for us to help more suppliers. So we've only scratched the surface with the suppliers in the U.S. We're starting to do a little bit of an international expansion.
Nice.
Our big exciting thing for this year is we're building some software that one is going to power what we do to make us more efficient and effective. But we're also building a client side. So in that baton race, when the handoffs, the software that we're building is going to make those handoffs, that transition more smooth. It's going to provide a lot of resources to help our clients on their side of the sales process. It's going to give, the engineers are going to love it. It's going to have a lot of data. It's going to have, defined processes. It's going to have KPIs.
There's a couple things that we need to touch on before we wrap up. We're getting close to time here. One is that you recently had something pretty notable in your personal life.
Yeah. So one of the guys that works here, he's got a sister that has that had twins, and she's not able to care for them right now. So he was taking them, but he's got two of his own and one on the way. So they did not think that 5 kids under 5 was, he's in his mid-20s. So they didn't think that was something that they were up for, understandably so. So my wife and I have, we got a 7-year-old, like I mentioned. He's great. We've struggled with 3 miscarriages since then. And so, we've been praying about it, and on our hearts was, adoption, or we have a desire to grow our family, or we've had this desire. And so, just trust in God. Like, what does that look like? We've been trying ourselves. It's not working. So we were kind of going down the adoption road. Well, this opportunity came up, and we just kind of jumped. We said, "Hey, we'll take them." So 2 or 3 weeks, about 3 weeks ago, they went from his house to our house. So we've got 12-week-old twins in our house now. They're just super awesome. It's a big, huge blessing. So we're doing. It's not adoption yet. It could be that. It's not fostering. It's a kinship. Yeah. So basically, it's similar to fostering. The family elects for us to be their caretakers for a period of time. So we're just super blessed. We're knee deep in diapers and bottles and screaming. It's really fun.
It's very cool. We were actually scheduled to record this when all this came down. So I had a little bit inside info straight from Gabe saying, yeah, it's day of, but we got to beg off.
Yeah.
A very good excuse for needing to postpone. So very
I
cool.
appreciate you being flexible. I figured you might.
Yep. And then the other thing is Gabe and I are fellow cyclists. So we were chatting a little before we got on about riding our bikes. So you're a roadie?
I'm a roadie. I do a little mountain, but mostly road.
Yeah.
So you got to find a positive outlet for stress if you're going to be in business. I found that cycling is a really healthy way to, take stress out on the pedals, not on anything else. But the other thing is like business requires a lot of endurance and a lot of suffering if you want to do anything of significance.
Yeah.
And cycling does as well. And again, I kind of view it as training for business. Like if I can go out on my bike and just be in agony for 2 or 3 hours, then, stress at business doesn't seem as hard because I've been training for pain.
Embrace the suck.
Yep.
Yeah. Very cool. What if you had to think of like the absolute maximum fun you've ever had on a bike? What was that time?
Oh man. So there's this ride in Indianapolis called the Roll Fast Grand Fondo. And I don't know how many cyclists do it, hundreds. And they bring in, like Bob Roll was there.
Oh yeah.
They bring in some of the big name guys, some celebs to ride. And this is weird that this is my thing, but it sticks out. It took off so fast, and I'm riding in this pack, and we're doing 25, 26 miles per hour. I mean, just blazing fast, faster than I can do on my own, way faster than I can do on my own. But we're just cruising, and it was the most fun I've ever had on a bike. 25 miles into the 100-mile fondo, I got a flat tire, and they all left me. So my fun times were limited, but that 25 miles at 25 plus was probably the best hour I've ever had on a bike.
Oh, that's cool. I've had so many good times on the bike. The one that pops out to me is I lived in Buffalo for a few years, and while Buffalo, the main part's very flat, I lived down south where the farther south you go, the hillier it gets, and I would ride south from my house, so down into some really decent steep hills. And there was this one up and down that I did on my regular weekday route where the downhill side, I mean, it wasn't a super huge hill, but it was super steep and long enough where I could get up like absolute maximum speed. And I remember like the first couple times riding it thinking I could hit 60 miles an hour on this hill. And I eventually did. One day, everything had to be perfect. The wind had to be behind me. Road had to be clear. I hit 60 going down that hill.
I hit 60 once. I was in Telluride on a full suspension mountain bike, and I was they had a fire trail between, you see those on the ski lift. So in Telluride, you can hook it onto the gondola and it goes up the mountain. Yep. You ride down.
Yep.
So I'm going down this fire trail, and I knew I was flying. But I get back and I check my Garmin, and it said max speed 60 miles an hour, and that freaked me out.
Holy crap.
It was like a gravel road, and I would have been toast if I'd wiped out.
Yes. Yeah, they'd have been scraping you up. But you didn't.
I didn't.
Very cool. Well, so we're down the last couple minutes. Is there anything else folks out there ought to know about Factur? Just where to find you would be a good one.
If folks are interested, they can go to facturmfg.com, Factur with a U. So facturmfg.com is our website. They can hit me on LinkedIn, Gabe Draper. That's where they can find me. If they want to talk to me, I'm pretty easy. We don't have a hard sale. Like we can talk through nuts and bolts, and if it works, great. If not, good, awesome to make a new connection with a new person.
Fantastic. Well, Gabe, it's been marvelous. Thanks for joining us on Manufacturing Talks. Good luck with the new joys at home, and good luck with the business.
Thanks a lot, Jim. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yep. Thanks everyone for joining us, and look for us for our next show coming up. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vanoski. Watch for new episodes dropping on the first and third Tuesdays of every month.